Refugee influx witnessed with more 83,000 refugees arriving Dolo, Ethiopia. And Pakistani investors urged the Ethiopian government to create conducive business environment in Ethiopia. Good morning, you're watching Addis News Hour. I'm Zord Desalegn. Thank you for watching and do stay with us. First Lady Zinash Tayacho has inaugurated the 6th bakery and flour factory in Bonga Town, southwestern Ethiopia region. Office of the First Lady has so far inaugurated 5 bakery and flour factories in towns and cities across the nation, including Addis Ababa. The construction of the factory, which has taken the office of the Prime Minister 11 months for completion, is capable of creating 150 permanent jobs. The office said similar projects underway in 6 towns in several parts of the country. The First Lady also laid a cornerstone for construction of Bonga Airport in the town in attendance of Chief Administrator of Southwestern Ethiopia Region, Nagash Wagesho, and other federal regional officers. Ethiopia's Refugee and Returnee Service said refugees fleeing from Somali region due to the conflict is surging. Returnee Affairs with UNHCR disclosed that the refugee influx in Ethiopia has reached more than 83,000. Ethiopia's Refugees and Returnee Affairs and UNHCR briefed journalists regarding the increasing number of refugees. Tigusernisa reports.
Most of the refugees crossing the border to Dolo zone of Ethiopia's Somali region included women, pregnant and lactant mothers, children, including unaccompanied and separated, the elderly, persons with serious medical conditions and with disabilities. They have been facing high protection risks and are in need of urgent assistance. Both RRAs and UNHCR acknowledged the generosity of Ethiopian government and the host communities.
Even before we were able to arrive there, they were the ones who were sheltering them in their homes, who were sharing the minimum food they are having, and also these are people who have shown that solidarity can happen even if you are not in the best condition. So we have a huge admiration for them. We really have a lesson to learn, honestly, from their hospitality and from their generosity.
For the UNHCR, the UN Refugee Agency, and the UN family, for us, the first message we want to pass is really to express and highlight the solidarity of the government of Ethiopia, the federal government, the regional authorities, and the communities that have really opened their doors to receive these persons in need of support, of asylum.
Since the people crossing the border require basic need, an urgent assistance has to be put in place. It was highlighted that RRAs and UNHCR are doing level-based to help address the situation.
RRS, the Refugees and Returnees Service, and UNHCR have put in place a protection desk that is identifying close to 500 persons who are in need of urgent support, including family tracing. And it is important to also support those needs. So material needs, shelter, water, food, and few others, but also psychosocial support and the like.
An urgent call has been made to the international community to take into account the hosting communities as well.
So far we have been able to communicate with WFP, and they have generously agreed to the idea that they will consider all host communities that are affected by the drought to be included in the food distribution that would be happening to the refugees. This is a huge consideration from WFP, and we request all our partners and donors to give this sense of generosity and also this hospitality, to give it due attention and also consideration in the actions forward.
The second message I passed was to say there is urgent need for support. So if we do not support the populations who are hosting and who are doing their part, we can do as much as possible, but we cannot reduce that risk. So that was really my second message about the need for urgent support from the international community.
Finding ways to help refugees return home safe and sound, with another appeal to the international community.
And the people we met when Atu Tesfaun and I and our teams went to Bok last week, they were telling us we want to go home. So it's not people who want to stay in refugee situations, they want to go home. So the appeal is also to find ways to help to find solutions to the problems so that people can return home.
Joining efforts to help respond to the unfolding emergency in the Dolo zone, Ethiopia, was left as the next assignment for partners in the international community at large.
Sacrificing for goodwill services in Ethiopia is said to be instrumental to help the country get out of its host of challenges. The stride would be instrumental to achieve in the aspired development strides in the country. Ministry of Peace underscored the collaboration of all stakeholders, both local and international partners, is also crucial to successfully accomplish the peace efforts being carried out in Ethiopia. Daniel Kassaun has more on that. Take a look.
The high-level multi-stakeholders conference on peace-building, national dialogue and togetherness in Ethiopia held in Addis Ababa, highlighting the collaboration of all stakeholders, both local and international partners, is also crucial to successfully accomplish the peace efforts being carried out in the country. The conference was organized by Inspired Ethiopian Youth Association in partnership with the Initiative Concerned Generation Movement, Ministry of Peace and Ministry of Women in Social Affairs. Addressing the conference, State Minister of Peace Taye Denda said sacrificing for goodwill services in Ethiopia is said to be instrumental to help the country get out of its host of challenges.
ሰላም ሚኒስቴር ዋናውና ቁልፉ አጀንዳ አገር ግንባታ ነው።
The sole goal of the Peace Ministry is helping ensure development achievements in Ethiopia. The government is working to ensure peace across the country. We aspire peace as a human family, regardless of our social, political, and religious backgrounds.
Ensuring peace demands collective and coordinated efforts with mutual understanding among the stakeholders, including international partners. In this regard, individuals, families, communities, civil societies, different governmental institutions and international partners have their own role, the State Minister added.
Unity is not an option, particularly for nations like Ethiopia. It is a must. We can't achieve unity without dialogue, theories-based tool to create togetherness and social integration among the diverse sectors of our society.
Positive signs of the peace process are being prevailing in the northern Ethiopia and other parts of the country with continual peace-building efforts of concerned bodies.
The 70th Global
It's expected that Ethiopia is Ethiopians
One of Africa's soldiers and us.
Our news is always aired on Monday to Friday on 11 a.m. and 9 p.m. and also on Saturday and Sunday on 9 p.m. Make sure to follow us.
EU Ambassador to Ethiopia Roland Kobia has arrived in Gambela Regional State and observed developmental activities in the area being supported by the European Union. Chief Administrator of Gambela Regional Modo Julu, together with the other regional officials, has received the EU Ambassador. Roland Kobia discussed with regional officials to bolster development cooperation and expedite implementation of collaborative activities in the region. African countries have been undertaking great achievement in increasing the accessibility of education in various parts of Africa. Talking to EBC English, Assistant Director General for Priority Africa at UNESCO said African countries playing at their level best under critical challenges. Haptamo Shagri has the following account. Take a look.
Despite various socio-economic and political complications in Africa, African countries are relentlessly working to increase education accessibility in the continent.
African governments, African countries...
Talking to EBC English, Edward Matoko, who is Assistant Director General for Priority Africa and External Relations at UNESCO, said African countries registered tremendous efforts to expand education accessibility.
African governments, African countries have made great achievements in terms of education, in terms of guaranteeing access to education for all, including for girls in all parts of Africa. There are still challenges remaining, but we have to be proud as Africans of the progress we've made since the 90s.
In spite of economic crisis witnessing in Africa, the Assistant Director General said improving political will and participation of local communities are increasing from time to time. According to Edward, regional blocs and the African Union Commission played significant contribution to the witnessing success.
There is a political will now from the African government. There is a great engagement from the families, from the parents, to pay for the schools for the students up to the university. It's not always cheap, but they pay. It's an engagement from the local communities, the local leaders also. I think this movement is also due to the fact that the African Union, of course, along with UNESCO, UNICEF, all UN agencies have made effort to raise awareness about the importance of having people educated for the well-being of the nation.
Despite all success stories in the continent, African government and regional institutions need to allocate appropriate funds to boost the education sector is said to be critical. The less infrastructure facilities in school need collective effort to register further achievements in Africa, Edward remarked.
There are many challenges ahead, let alone the challenges of the schools infrastructure. In many parts of Africa, you have classrooms with more than 45 children for one teacher. You have also children that share the same classroom. You don't have enough space for the children to do sports. You don't have enough space for the girls to have a safe environment. So all these are challenges, continuous challenges that we need to take into account for the future of the education in Africa.
በመጣበት ጊዜ ይሄውን የሚታየው ቤት አሁን ተሰራው ደግሞ ምክትል አስተዳዳሪው ተገልጸዋል። በቂ አይደለም፣ ዱንካን የለም። ይሄ መንጎስር ነው የሚሰፍረው ሁሉ። ይሄ ዝናብ እየዘነበ እዛ ውስጥ ነው የሚያድረው። አሁን አንዳንዶቹ ማሻአላ እየመጡ ማለት ነው ራሳቸው ለሶስት ቀን ብቻ አድሮበት የሚወጡ እየሰሩ እየተስፋፋ ነው። ለወደፊቱ ኢንሻአላ እኛ ተስፋ አንቆርጥም።
በብዛት የሀገር ውስጥ ቱሪስቶች ወይም የሃይማኖቱ ተከታዮች በአብዛኛው ጊዜ በመስከረም ወር ውስጥ በሚከበረው የአረፋ በዓል ላይ ብዛት ያላቸው የሃይማኖቱ ተከታዮች ወደዛ ቦታ መጥተው ያንን በዓል ያከብራሉ።
Minister of Planning and Development Fitsum Assefa, along with Foreign Affairs State Minister Ambassador Miscano Orega, held a bilateral meeting with Savino Augusto Jose Moreno, Minister of Industry and Commerce of Mozambique. The discussion was held on the sidelines of the 5th UN Conference on the Least Developed Countries Summit being held in Doha, Qatar. The discussion centered on strengthening trade and investment ties between the two countries, according to the Foreign Affairs Ministry. Both sides also emphasized the need to utilize intra-African trade potentials within the African Continental Free Trade Area framework. At the ongoing 5th UN Conference on the Least Developed Countries in Doha, Fitsum Assefa, Ethiopia's Minister of Planning and Development, emphasized the need to carve new pathways to address the developmental quest of the least developed countries. Fitsum stated that the global economic and financial system currently in place has failed to deliver a meaningful response thus far. She also noted that the least developed countries continue to exert efforts both to cushion the effects of global instability and sustain their hard-won development gains. The minister further underscored that commitments made to create level ground for the integration of least developed countries into global markets did not yield much result. She emphasized the urgent need to free more resources for development finance through granting debt relief. Sharing Ethiopia's successful experience in agricultural reform, she said the significant increase in wheat production as well as the Green Legacy Initiative is among many good examples of what least developed countries can achieve when they focus on their endowments and adopt the right priorities. And the minister concluded by asserting Ethiopia's commitment to continue to pursue a pro-poor policy path in alignment with the UN Sustainable Development Goals Agenda 2063 of the African Union and the Doha Program of Action.
Are the gateway for all foreign direct investors. Perfectly having the peace will definitely help us and boost the potential of Ethiopia. Even during those conflict time, Ethiopia has a big potential. So majorly, more than $3.4 billion of investment has come last year. Kind of half cabinet will be at the board of Ethiopian Investment Commission. So this shows the commitment of government. So secondly is, the investor need to know that majorly they have a question of repatriation of their profit. Actually, repatriation of their profit is allowed in our law. It's a very clear one. And the Ethiopian Investment Commission is ready to welcome you, whether you are local or foreign direct investors, to invest in Ethiopia. We believe that it's time to invest in our country. It's time to invest in Ethiopia. We are providing and making sure that we are doing the ease of doing business for the country, and majorly we are implementing the aftercare strategy.
Pakistani Trade and Investment urged the Ethiopian government to create conducive business climate. They also asserted that the Ethiopian government on improving the infrastructure network, maintaining peace and ensuring security concerns regarding their upcoming investments. Kasan Jani has more details.
In comparison to the opportunities, both Ethiopia and Pakistan's investment exchange has not yet crossed 78 million USD, which is below average. The Ethiopian Investment Commission held a consultation meeting with the Pakistani business delegation, which included more than 70 business people for more than 5 consecutive days to discuss potential business and investment prospects in Ethiopia. In the discussion, it was remarked that Ethiopia and Pakistan had an interest in fostering trade and economic relations beyond them by taking advantage of their respective untapped potentials. The Ethiopian government is required to provide a welcoming business environment that promotes profitable investment, which may drive growth and be essential to reducing poverty, according to Pakistan investors.
The government can support us through the investment which we are going to invest here, and the consistency of their policy to welcome the investment in either direct investment or the human capital whatsoever. So we are expecting these things from Ethiopian government, and I can assure you that Pakistani pharma industries and we Farm-Evo is ready to serve here.
I would love for the government to be a bit more clear and more detailed, and I'm hoping that over the next few days of this delegation I will get all the answers to all the questions I have. But I would like them to tell me about any aid they will give in financing any project that I bring. After all, I'll bring my machinery, I'll bring my expertise. But beyond that, if they would allow, would they be giving me land? Will they be giving me aid in constructing my factory, or are there pre-existing factories that I could rent or lease that I could just bring my machinery into? From a taxation point of view and a duty point of view, what will there be if I'm exporting? Will I get any benefits and import duties for my raw material if it's not available in Ethiopia? Or beyond that, maybe any income tax benefits I will have for setting up my industry in Ethiopia. And I would like to just be able to create an environment which is mutually beneficial for both the government of Ethiopia and for the government of Pakistan.
Also, they noted the need of excellent governance, network expansion, and other factors related to their prospective successful investments.
We need certain policies that the security of the investment, the first of all, and the second thing, the good returns against those investments, and the third important thing, whether if we want to invest it, so this investment we can explore in the form of the re-export to the other countries or not.
I love the patterns. One of these. You can see the outside of the mosque here. Nearly 50,000 people call the Casbah home, and it's been inhabited since the 2nd century AD. It's all a UNESCO World Heritage Site too. Walking through and suddenly seeing all these views of the Mediterranean and the city in the distance. Many cities around Algeria have their own Casbahs, including Gardea, which I'll be visiting later on in the trip, but here, the biggest one you'll find in Algiers.
Some 50 of the 52 countries in Africa will have positive growth rates, and 5 of the 10 fastest growing economies in the world will be African countries, according to the African Development Bank Group President Akinwumi Adesina. In an exclusive interview with the Ethiopian News Agency, President of the bank said that people often talk about challenges of Africa, which is undeniable, but it also has opportunities. Daniel Kassan has more from the Ethiopian News Agency.
In an exclusive interview with the Ethiopian News Agency, the African Development Bank Group President Akinwumi Adesina cited the bank's Economic Outlook 2023 report for Africa. He also stated that GDP growth rate of African economies will grow at 4%, while the world is about 2.7%, and next year about 3.2%.
Africa's head is well above water in a world where you have geopolitical risk, disruptions of supply chains and rising debt levels and depreciation of many currencies and so on. So Africa is doing quite well. In fact, 50 of the 52 countries in Africa that we looked at have posted positive growth rates, and we expect that 5 of the 10 fastest growing economies in the world will be African countries again.
According to the president, the bank's investment in transmission lines all across countries to be able to take power out, and Ethiopia's transmission line that goes all the way to Somalia and Djibouti providing electricity is one of those.
We also invest heavily in renewable energy. Today we are investing in what is called desert to power. Desert to power is to provide 10,000 megawatts of solar all across the 11 countries of the Sahelian part of Africa. And you know what that's going to do? It's going to provide electricity for 250 million people, and that will become the largest solar zone in the world. So we are leading when it comes to that particular issue of energy.
He indicated that the bank has been supporting African farmers to mitigate the current food crisis in the world by increasing agricultural productivity in the continent.
The issue is, how is this going to affect Africa's import demand from those countries? And to mitigate that impact, we put in place a $1.5 billion Africa Emergency Food Production Facility that will quickly support African farmers, about almost 28 million farmers, to produce food valued at $12 billion. So I'm pretty confident that with our support, both in the short term and medium term that we are doing, that Africa will not have a food crisis. But we have to start taking agriculture very seriously.
The bank supported the government of Ethiopia to have access to heat-tolerant wheat varieties in Ethiopian lowlands, where the country started cultivating them on 5,000 hectares in 2018, he mentioned, and added that currently it is at 1.4 million hectares. Ethiopia, for the first time in history, is now a net exporter of wheat.
You're watching Addis News Hour, and now let's take a recap of the top stories once again. Refugee influx witnessed with more than 83,000 refugees arriving Dolo, Ethiopia. And Pakistani investors urged the Ethiopian government to create a conducive business environment in Ethiopia. Thank you all for watching Addis News Hour. I'm Zoltan Desalegn, and have a great day ahead.